Hello. Firstly, congratulations to you. You have completed 10 days, 2 weeks. You're in day 11. If you continue in the same pace, spending 1.5 hour a day listening to my lectures and also doing practice as per my exercises, by the end of day 30, you will be able to clear interviews very easily and you'll be able to start working on Mule comfortably. You'll be able to clear certification exams also very easily. Okay, coming back to day 11, what is the agenda for day 11? So in this video, firstly, I'm going to discuss about Mule domains. What are domains and what is the purpose? So before even I talk about domains, let me tell you something which I want to talk about databases. Actually, if you see in this database application in global elements, I have configured this database config. Here I told how to actually use this configuration to acquire connections. So normally in a flow, what happens is whenever a request comes, whenever the control comes here, this component needs a database connection to fire a query, whether it is insert or anything. Every time by default, a new connection object is created. Actually, internally Mule is using Java, and to talk to databases in Java, we use JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. So whenever a query has to be fired to database, normally by default, a new connection is obtained by using whatever we have done here. It will use all this configuration to acquire a new connection. But actually creating a new connection every time is not advisable because creating a new connection over network takes some time. It is a network operation. So creating a new connection every time is not suggested. Actually, what we do is we use something called as connection pooling. What is this connection pooling? Pool. Basically, you can think of pool as something which contains reusable objects. Normally, in companies, we have bench concept, right? Can I say that bench in corporate contains pool of resources which can be reused in any related projects? Yes, bench is a pool of human resources. So suppose a company recruits you, you'll be working on a project. Once that project is over, no, right, you come to the bench. Then after some time, you will be picked up by any other new project and you'll start working. And once that project is also over, then you come back to bench. So like that, companies, they don't hire whenever required. You go to bench and you will get picked up from bench to any other project. So bench, I can say in corporates, is like a resource pool. Basically, a pool is something which is reusable. It contains reusable objects. Similarly, in databases, whenever we are talking to database, whenever we want a connection, creating a new connection is not advisable. It is better to maintain a pool of connections. So in Java, there are a lot of libraries by using which we can create connection pooling. So we need a library to which I can configure minimum number of connections in pool is, for example, 2. Maximum connections in the pool is, let us say, 50. So what will happen? The library, whenever my application is starting, the library should create 2 connection objects and keep in the pool. Okay. Now, in our application, whenever requests come, my application may need a connection, right? It will take out the connection from the pool. Actually, whenever request comes, a thread will be created, right? A thread, whenever it is executing a flow, a thread wants a connection. It will pick a connection from the pool. So the connection is out of the pool right now. So initially, if there are two, right now, how many connections will be there if this is picked out? One. Concurrently, one more request came. This also will be pulled out from the pool. Now the pool is empty. What will happen if another request comes to my application and we need one more connection? The pool is empty, right? So the library which we are using is configured with max equals to 50. So what the library will do, it will create one more new connection and add it to the pool. From the pool, it will be picked up by the thread in the application. So like that, if the pool is not having any new and added to the pool until the maximum number of connections become 50 in this case. So assume that at a particular point of time, 50 new connections are created in the pool, and all the 50 connections are being used concurrently by multiple threads within my application. Now 51st request came, and that 51st, for the 51st request, the thread needs a new connection. Will a new connection be created by the library? No. So thread which is requesting for a connection from the connection pool will have to wait until one of the connection becomes free and come back to the pool. So if another connection comes back to the pool, that will be used by the thread. This thread, whenever it requests a connection from the pool, it will wait for a connection until some waiting time. We can just configure all these things, and the library which is implementing this logic will take care, right? Similarly, in Mule also, we don't need to code automatically Mule. We just have to configure a connection pool, and we can make our database connector to retrieve a connection from this pool, right? So let me show you how to configure connection pool. So here is my database config in the global elements. I will edit it under advanced, not here, under advanced here. Yes. Here in this advanced tab, there is pooling profile. I can configure edit inline. Here is the configuration. What is the maximum size of the pool? Let us say 10. And what is the minimum size of the pool? 1. So initially the pool will start with 1 and can grow up to 10. What is the acquired increment? That means whenever a new connection is required, do you want to increment by 1 or 2? I want it to be incremented by 1. And this is irrelevant right now, statement cache. Max wait, maximum wait time. That means if a thread is requesting from the pool, it has to wait for how many seconds before throwing an exception. I can set 10 seconds, 10 and seconds. If I give 0, it is infinite. The thread will be keeping on waiting, right? So that is the meaning of max wait. Max idle time. What is this max idle time? Suppose if there is a connection in the pool without being used for, let us say, 2 minutes. I want that connection to be removed out of the pool. Minimum is 2 only, right? Let us say at a particular point, there was huge traffic, huge number of requests coming to my application. The connection pool size went up to 50. But now the number of requests which are coming to my application has come down, but 50 connections are there in the pool unnecessarily lying there, right? So if a connection is idle without being used for say 2 minutes or 5 minutes, I want that connection to be released from the pool. Just like companies, if you are on a bench for 3 months, you'll be fired, is it? You cannot sit on bench for infinite amount of time. There is a max idle time. If somebody is idle for say 3 months duration, they'll be fired out of the company, right? Just like that, if there is a connection in the pool which is idle for, let us say I want to give idle time is, let us say, 300 seconds. 300 seconds means 5 minutes. Okay. So that will be removed from the pool. Like that, we can just configure the pooling profile. And now the database connector will internally maintain a connection pool. Good, right? But now, let me tell you the problem. Let's assume that in a Mule application, suppose I'm having a Mule runtime. In Mule runtime, I have application A deployed, application B deployed, for example, and assume that both of them are talking to same database. For example, normally what we do, we configure a database connector configuration for application A and for application B. And at the database connector level only, we are configuring connection pooling, right? So application A will have its own connection pool, application B will have its own connection pool, but they're talking to same databases, same database. Will it not be good if both application A and B share the same connection pool because they're running within the same Mule runtime? If both application A and B can share the connection pool, it will be good, right? Yes, keep this in mind. Okay, I'll tell you the solution. So that means what? The global elements, this global element database configuration, if it can be shared across application A and application B, it will be really good. Okay, keep this in mind. And one more thing. Assume that in application A, we are having a HTTP listener listening on port 8081. It is deployed and now it is running. Now I'm trying to deploy application B, and in B also I have configured a global element HTTP listener configuration to listen on port 8081. If I deploy B now, will the deployment be successful? No, right? This will also try to start listening on port 8081, which is already occupied in application A. So we'll get a port conflict. What if both application A and B running on same machine want to share the same port? Good, right? So again, I feel that there's a requirement where I need to share this global configuration. So for both application A and B, if I can have common shared global configurations or global elements, it will be good, right? Yes. There comes need for something called as a Mule domain. What is a domain? Actually, in Mule, domain application is something which contains global configurations only that needs to be shared across multiple applications. Okay. If you have some global elements that needs to be shared across multiple applications which are running inside same Mule runtime, then we can create a domain application and make this both A and B point to same domain. Remember, domain will work only if two applications running in single runtime needs to share the configurations. Okay. So first of all, let me actually show you how to create a domain application and how to use it. Then I will tell you where it can be used, where it cannot be used. That is important for interview purpose. When to use, when not to use. First, let us try to see how it can be used. Okay. So right now, this DB demo is containing all global elements in globals.xml. Now I'm going to create a new application. Till now, we used to create new Mule project. But now I'll select Mule domain project. Okay. This is a different kind of an application. Okay. I'll give the name as my domain. I can give anything. My domain. So this is how we can create a domain application. See, the icon also is different. It's not like, oh, see here in this XML, there are only two tabs, configuration XML global elements. But whereas in our normal XMLs, we used to have 3 tabs, message flow tab. In domain configuration file, there are only 2 tabs. Message flow is not there. That tells that in domain configuration file, we cannot configure flows. Only global elements can be configured here. Remember one important point about domains. Domain application cannot contain flows. If you want to have shared flows, no, domain is not the place. Domain application can contain only shared global elements. Okay, fine. Once you understand this, let us try to configure global elements. So what I want is, I want HTTP listener to be configured inside this one. I'll try to click on create and select HTTP. Oh, there is no HTTP because on the right side palette, you don't see any modules as well. If I see my pom.xml of this project, under dependencies, you can see dependencies is empty. By default, the domain project does not have any modules. If you want to add modules, what you have to do is you have to go here to this XML, click on manage modules, and then here you can add a module from, I can say from, let us see Maven. You have to configure the dependency tag if you select from Maven. So what I can do is I can use from exchange, from any point exchange. So I'll search what HTTP and tab it. I just pressed on tab, it will search. You can see here there is HTTP connector Mule 4. I will add. So I'm adding this HTTP connector module here. Like that, I also want to add database module. So I type database. I will select database connector module. And also, I will search for secure configuration properties. Yeah, here I'll select Mule secure configuration properties and finish. So it will download all these connector modules from any point exchange. So it will take some time. Let me just wait until all of them are downloaded. Yes, all of them are downloaded. Fine. Apply and close. So all these modules are added to this project. You can see this database, HTTP, all this. Even if I now open pom.xml, under dependencies tag, you can see the dependencies added. Hey, don't worry. Actually, if I just add HTTP module, sockets connector module also will be automatically added. Okay, fine. I have modules added. Now I'll click on create and I'll select HTTP. Yes, I'll give HTTP the same thing 8081 I want. Fine. I configured HTTP listener as a global element. Okay. Then I want to actually use database config. I can click on create database config. Again, I will select MySQL. I'll configure MySQL JDBC driver as usual. And then I can give $db.host port. I will hardcode 3306 $db.username and $db.password $db.name. Fine. Now I need to configure configuration properties. First of all, in my earlier DB demo project, I have this app-dev, app-prod, app-secure-dev, all this I'll copy and I'll paste this into src main resources. Now I need to tell read configuration properties from app-dev. Create configuration properties. I'll give app dash $env also I can give, and I can pass the value of this placeholder while running. That's fine. But right now I'll hard code app-dev.yaml, and secure configuration properties are present here, right? And what was my key actually for secure configuration? There is a key. The key is my random key. Okay, fine. I'll copy paste. So fine. Now we're going to domain. I'll configure secure configuration, secure properties config. The file name is app-secure-dev.yaml, and the key, encryption key, this is the one which I used earlier, if you remember. The algorithm I use is Blowfish, mode is CBC. Fine. I configured all these global elements. So whatever is there in globals, I have done. Except that global property, this is not required in this case. Okay. Fine. Now, in this Mule domain config, if I click on this database config, and if I try to test connection, let us see if test connection is successful. It is saying db.username not found. Okay. In app-dev, do I have db.username? No. I have username and password in secure. Okay, I hope you remember. If you want to decrypt any properties, if you want the properties to be read from secure properties config, you have to prefix that with secure : : Similarly, the password also is in secured file. So I will write secure : . Fine. Now test connection successful. Good. So in the domain project, I was able to test connection. Now in this DB demo project, I don't need this globals.xml. I can delete it. Okay. Then I don't need this app-dev, app-prod, app-secure-dev. Nothing. I will delete it. Then in this DB demo, here you can see all these components are giving error because the global elements are not present. This HTTP listener config is not present anymore. So I want this project to point to the domain project. How? Right click on the project and go to properties. Under Mule project, if I select here, I can select my domain. So I'm telling this project will use this domain. Okay, apply and close. So that's all. Now the errors are gone. Whatever global elements we have in my domain are being used here. Fine. Let me test it. I will run it and see what will happen if I try to deploy a project with domain. What will happen? Let us see. You can observe that first my domain is getting deployed. Actually, I deployed DB demo, but as DB demo project depends on domain, you can see on the console as well. The application got deployed. First, my domain deployed, and here it is saying that this DB demo belongs to this domain. It is using this domain. Actually, if you have not defined any domain, by default domain will be used, which contains no configuration at all. The default domain doesn't contain anything. By default, for an application, if you don't specify any domain, it is default domain. So the domain application got deployed, and then my DB demo is using this. Right. So no exceptions. The application got deployed. So that's how to use domains. Fine. I hope now you understood how to use domains. Remember, if you are using a standalone Mule runtime, you have to keep your domain applications under domains folder. And as you know, you keep apps under apps folder. So before the application is deployed, you need to make sure that domain application is deployed if you are deploying to standalone. But when I deployed using Studio, Studio will automatically first deploy the domain and then deploy the application. But if you are deploying to standalone server, make sure that you copy the domains into domains and apps into apps. Make sure that you deploy domain application before the actual application, because the application depends on the domain. Fine. Now, you understood how to use domain. One important thing for interviews. Hey, if two applications are running inside same runtime and domain also is an application running with the same runtime, these two applications can have shared configurations in domain. But what if you're deploying your applications onto Cloud Hub? If you're deploying your application A onto Cloud Hub, what Cloud Hub will do, it will create a virtual machine and your application A will be running inside a Mule runtime on this VM. So it will be inside a Mule runtime on this VM. And if you deploy application B in Cloud Hub, a separate VM will be created, a separate Mule runtime will be started. Inside that, application B is running. So if you are deploying your applications to Cloud Hub, each application will run in its own Mule runtime. So can you have domains here? Does domains make sense in Cloud Hub? No. Right? So domains make sense only for your standalone Mule runtime deployments. Domains does not work for Cloud Hub. This is very important thing to keep in your mind. And remember one thing, domains can be can contain only global elements. They do not contain flows. Okay. So what I will do is I just go to Google and search for main Mule domain. I'll search for Mule domain. So here it will take me to the documentation. I strongly suggest you to go to this page and read about domains. There will be a lot of information which can help you in clearing the certification exams and also interviews, right? So if I just have to tell you, sharing resources allows multiple development teams to work in parallel and use same set of configurations, enabling teams to expose, share. Basically, it is used for sharing. Okay. So one thing here is shared resource configurations. Yes, here is the documentation which tells about everything, how to associate everything. One thing I want you to understand, Mule domain projects cannot be installed using runtime manager. I want you to understand this clearly. You have to copy the domain project into the Mule runtime, okay, into domains folder. Fine, I want you to go through this document if possible and understand about these domains. That's all. What you can do is you can actually go through my GitHub. See day 11, there will be a document where I have given you step-by-step instructions on how to actually create a project, a domain project, and how to use it. Whatever I have explained in this video, you'll have to practice. Go to my GitHub, practice this. Without practice, it will be of no use. Okay, that's all. See you in next lecture.